Fellas, Cinema back. Another dish. How we doing out there? Good, great, grand, and wonderful. As you see on your screen, your dial, however you're joining us today. The fantastic Mr. Fox and the Talking Heads in search for the sopping, semen-filled girdle. No, that's not what it's called. It's the Green Knight. Oh, fuck my producer. I'd only read what's put in front of me. So the Green Knight. Well, I just got done seeing this one, and I am exhausted. I mean, because when you're an overthinker to begin with, and you couple that with going into films not knowing anything about it. Of course, I don't watch trailers or read jack shit before I go into films that I know I'm going to see. Sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes it is very hard. I mean, I knew that we were I knew I was walking into a medieval film, but I didn't know that we were going. Well, hey, what is the Green Knight? An epic fantasy adventure based on the timeless Arthurian legend, the Green Knight tells the story of Sir Gawain, played by Dev Patel, King Arthur's reckless and headstrong nephew who embarks on a daring quest to confront the eponymous Green Knight, a gigantic emerald-skinned stranger and tester of men. Gawain contends with ghosts, giants, thieves, and schemers in what becomes a deeper journey to define his character and prove his worth in the eyes of his family and kingdom by facing the ultimate challenger. From visionary filmmaker David Lowery comes a fresh and bold spin on a classic tale from the Knights of the Round Table. So I found it only fitting that I would bring someone on who is smarter than me, because as of right now, we're both, he loves the film. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck to make of it. And it's not that I don't understand what's going on, and we'll kind of talk why I'm, relatively confused here in a moment. But doing his own movie podcast, Slaying It, he just started his horror series on I Know Movies and You Don't. His horror series just began, and I'll be sitting in on a couple of those, which will be fun, or one of those, I think, which will be fun. And, the dude himself, he slays. He slays. I learn quite a bit when sitting in on his show and when listening to his show. So I thought we gotta get someone smarter than I in to come in and talk about the Green Knight. So without further ado, from Los Angeles, I Know Movies and You Don't, Kyle Bruehl, how are we, sir?
Well, I'm well, and that's very nice intro. That's much nicer than anything my parents would have said at any point in my life, so I appreciate it.
Well, I think nowadays, if your parents are anything like mine, they're going, "You're a what castin'? You
what castin'? Yeah. Well, I like the phrase "everyone and their mother start the podcast." I'm just waiting for when my mom does one.
It'll probably. Well, I've heard you speak about your mom a couple of times. She sounds real cool. She took you to see. Was it Matinee that she made you sit down and watch when you were really younger? She's a cool lass.
Well, it runs in the family, the movie industry. I mean, her dad was an actor in old Hollywood. Her mom, my grandmother, was Vivian Leigh's stunt double in Gone with the Wind. Went on to work in PR for Warner Brothers. So my mom grew up with movies and shared them with me, and that's where my love kind of comes from.
Why am I learning this for the first time? I didn't know that you were born into it, molded by it. You didn't see a film
my grandfather has the first line spoken in Gone with the Wind. He's one of the Tarleton twins. So yeah, it's just a family affair, I suppose.
No, I mean, hey, I come by it honestly too. My father wrote 2 books about the greatest movie of all time, Somewhere in Time, with Christopher Reeve and Jane Seymour.
That's a very good movie, though. It's funny. I'm making a time travel season, and that's definitely on there. So I'm going to talk about it.
Yeah, but when you grow up with it, you're just like, oh, this fucking movie. Like, like he every year he does a somewhere in time weekend up at Mackinac Island, where all the the still living actors and actresses and crew members all come up there for a weekend of somewhere in time debauchery.
That is, somewhere in time debauchery. I wouldn't even think to describe it that way, but now I'm intrigued.
Yeah, no, it's just a bunch of Q&As with old people. That's all it is. He's like, "You want to go?" I said, "Nah, I'm good. I saw the film. That's enough."
That's good enough. Good enough.
So, sir, let's kind of I don't think we're gonna get too deep into it because I don't know how you could, to be honest with you, because I think a lot of this is in the eyes and ears of the beholder. I think this is a choose-your-own-adventure in terms of what it's going to mean to you or which direction you want to take it. So I don't know that it's possible to explore all the ideas in one single episode. But let's just kind of start with what I had mentioned to you via text before we started the show. I says to you, I says, Kyle, I says, hey, Kyle. It is nauseatingly ambiguous for Sean, and Sean loves to ponder. Sean is an overthinker. Maybe that's why it's not hitting me. So everyone that I talk to, the circles that I run in, you, a couple of my friends of mine, they're ranting and raving about it. And I tried my best to glance at your guys' text because I don't want to overhype anything for me. I definitely am that guy that will do that. So I didn't want to overhype it for me but coming out of there, I just was like, what the goddamn it? And it's not that I didn't understand it. It's that the writer-director, David Lowery, kind of did his own thing with it, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're talking about how the film is ambiguous and very intentionally so. I mean, the whole movie is a ponderous exercise that I can see a lot of people engaging from. I can see a lot of people not enjoying. This is a very, very particular film. Not a surprise coming, though, from the director of A Ghost Story. I love that film because of its ponderous nature, because of what it's trying to say about life, death, the afterlife, what an existence means in totality. And I don't think that's a far cry from what's going on in Green Knight. I think he's taking a very popular and known Arthurian legend. I grew up with King Arthur and Knights of the Round Table. Sir Gawain, Garwin, however the little subtle R that enters it, with Sean Harris's vernacular, I like Garwin. He's a Knight of the Round Table, a young one, impetuous, a drunkard, and what I like about this version of the story and what he's trying to say is that he's kind of living a hedonistic, empty life. He pays this prostitute and he has pleasure, but she clearly has more feeling for him than he ever really has for her, which is a deeply unfortunate side of his character. And when it's brought to him in the beginning of this movie that there's sort of some favor and acknowledgement from King Arthur himself, I think he has a shift in understanding, and that's why he takes on the challenge, the beheading game, with the Green Knight. And it's really a journey of contemplation, the contemplation of honor, your role in life, what does a life mean? And that is very particular about the movie, is that it's riddled with death along the pathway. It's ponderous and languid and moves slow and methodically. It has deviations of adventures. It's almost like a series of vignettes of the same character with a total film encompassing all of the vignettes, but a whole story in itself. And I get you. It is very ambiguous. it's hard to put your finger on the pulse of this film. I'm still wrestling with it, but maybe that's why I love it so much, is that it made me think about these ideas of what do I put in value in life. And, you know, is it to spoil the movie to say that the end is sort of a, you know, if you know the tale, there is no surprise to it, really. Although they don't venture beyond once he goes back to Camelot, where the sash that he wears is replicated so that all the knights wear the sash in order to represent honesty. But in this movie, we're left to just Sir Gawain and what he needs to wrestle with in his acceptance of death. And so the whole movie is kind of wrestling with that idea. And I think, you know, as I was watching it, I thought of some other movies that ponder the same thing, such as, you know, Jim Jarmusch's Dead Man, this idea of like being caught between life and death, being caught in between. What does that say about each of the things on either side of the liminality of being lost? And I don't know. This is a very profound film in a lot of ways. I think it's art in true its purest form. I mean, when we talk about cinema or film versus movies, I think this is very much a film. This is very much art. This is very much cinema. And based off of how it's done, the dedication, and then just the elements of all fusing together for one whole purpose. And this is why I love it.
Yeah, so one thing that I want the audience and also you, Kyle. Well, first of all, did you like my working title, my new working title for the...
Fantastic Mr. Fox and there was something vulgar after that.
Yes, we get a little vulgar on this show, but let's not be too juvenile. Let me get this out of the way. I think as a film, you're 100% right. I think this is one of the many reasons we go to the movies. Now, some people would be, nah, man, I go to see F9. Well, you know, some people go see that and other people go see this. So in that particular instance, yes, I think its execution as a film is, I mean, it's elite level. Like, and I think the implementing of the Weta Workshop and Skywalker Sound, I think, played huge dividends in this film, because had you not, I don't know if some of those scenes would have resonated with me like they did. I think it gives the Green Knight a much more imposing, just the sound of him, whether it's him turning his neck or something like that. It is hard to ignore. I think
it looks like a tree branch breaking.
Yes, slowly, I might add, the slowest possible. So, look, I think this is a story about the nature of story. Would that make sense to you?
Yeah, no, it's very true.
So because of that, and because of its I think what I'm wrestling with, I think we're both wrestling with things about this film, just in different paths. So I think what I'm wrestling with is, I don't mind if you give us a list of roads that we could possibly take, but if there's too many roads, sometimes a rebel like yours truly, because, you know, when the rebel yells, you cry more, and I will go right down the middle, sir. I won't take the roads. I'll just be like, there's too many. We'll go straight. And I know that sounds like a very sophomoric thing to say, but I only mention that because of where this conversation started. If it is overloaded with if it's overloaded in its ambiguousness, I'm not to say that you have to narrow it down like an Inception. Don't misconstrue what I'm saying. I'm not saying that you have to dumb it down to that level, even though I don't think Inception is a dumb movie. I don't know if it's rated as high as it should be, but it's still whatever. It's a good blockbuster thinker, which most of the time those two words don't go hand in hand. So I don't mind if we push it a little bit harder than that, but so you know what, we can spoil some things. So if you plan on seeing this movie, you may want to turn it down a little bit here. So towards the end, now we could say, and I don't, in having read an interview that David had done, he wanted to turn a beheading into a positive note.
Yeah.
That, okay, if you look at it in that perspective, it works. I like it, but I don't think that it really answers all the questions that I have. So, the big one, and this one you blink and you're going to miss it, but towards the end when we're seeing the Green Knight's face, we see several faces within the Green Knight's face, right? We see Joel, we see... Now, is it Alicia or is it Alicia?
Alicia Vikander. I think it's Alicia.
Okay, so Alicia Vikander, we see her as well, but again, blink and you'll probably miss it because of how subtle it is. So when you do something like that, now I'm confused as if the spell created by, what's her name, Morgana?
Morgana, yeah.
Now this is where I get confused, Kyle. Now is this all a spell? Is this all in his head? Because I think you perfectly said when you said I think it's a series of vignettes. I really do believe that, whether it's loyalty, love, whatever. I do think that it plays like that, but when you wrap it up, talk to me. What am I missing? Is it all just it's just an imagination, like the spinning of the camera and the we see him alive, tied up at the base of a tree, and then we kind of turn the camera and then we just see his skull and bones there. Now, is this all an imagining of things to come? Is this just is this him imagining that? Or is, talk to me.
Well, so these are all, I think, separate things. I think that the sequence of him being tied up and then see his dead skeletal body and remains is different from the idea of what's going on with the Green Knight in particular. But let me answer your first question about with Morgana, what this all is. It's interesting because the movie doesn't address it.
No, not at all.
But it's interesting, and I think it's because Lowry is trying to invoke a feeling of what these stories might feel like or be like, this like fantastical fantasy in our minds, and takes us to a world that feels otherworldly. It feels transcendental in a lot of ways because these mythologies, these stories that we tell ourselves are beyond us. They are beyond our sort of corporeal reality. I think they are for a depiction for beyond. So I think this is why, because in the poem, Morgana is doing it to challenge the Knights of the Round Table, not necessarily particularly Garwin, but is challenging them in order to sort of scare Guinevere into death and sort of thing. It's like it's supposed to be sort of a challenge because she doesn't particularly like King Arthur's wife. So if you know that, there's some sort of answer of what's going on. There's sort of a familial strife that's going on that she is utilizing witchcraft or utilizing some power to put the Green Knight into the momentum of the story and introduce the beheading game. And so when you get to the end, what's interesting, it's so interesting to me what he's doing in choosing to show you what he does versus what happens in the poem. In the poem, the axe comes down and nicks his neck. And it's sort of a warning and an aspect that he has failed. You have failed the task of fulfillment of the wound because you're unwilling, and I can sense your unwillingness. So the sash represents his failure, but to be honest in his failure, and that is sort of an honor, that in itself is honor. And he goes back, and the rest of the knights take on the sash as a representation of honesty. And so what is Lowry doing? Lowry takes that away. He makes it purely character oriented, character driven. And we get a lovely, beautiful sequence, montage of life flashing before his eyes. It's very Brazil in a lot of ways. It's very a lot of films that occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. It's like in the flash of my last moments of life, this entire existence flashes, and I experience it. And what's so beautiful about it is the attitude that comes out is that within his mind he is beheaded anyway after a long life of strife, a long life of hardship, loss, regret. And what's so interesting to me is that the movie lets that flash before his eyes. He undoes the sash that he believes potentially could make him invincible or let him live throughout the beheading game. And what I like is that the Green Knight acknowledges that he maybe has succeeded in this tale instead of the one that's in the original poem, that Darwin has accepted his fate, and that inevitably, the Green Knight says, what else? Because he asks, what is it? Like, is this all there is? He goes, what else could there be? And that is death. Death is all that there is for us. And what I love about his acceptance is that in the movie, he's now able to live that life, maybe differently, maybe the same, but enjoy it more because it's now an acceptance. And I love that about this.
And then, correct me if I'm wrong, he doesn't enjoy, he envisions himself not enjoying that life, right?
No, he doesn't. But that's what's so interesting is because he is lamenting in the process of, in death, what will there be in life? And that life is not really a good one. It's hard, but it is about valuing the path, valuing the journey. I think that's why the movie is about journey and moving forward in general.
I can definitely get on board with that. I like I said, to me it's not a bad movie by any means. I mean, for fuck's sake, I just watched Jungle Cruise and Fast 9. Like, it's not a bad movie. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like what I was saying. I actually, you know what, this would be kind of fun to do on air if I can do it right. If I can use my words properly. So we were talking about Jungle Cruise yesterday, right?
Yeah.
So the way that I was trying to convey how I felt about the film to you, I think it just kind of it's tough to do on text. So I want you to hear my tone, and I want you to hear me when I say this. So for those of you that, well, actually all of you don't know, Kyle hated Jungle Cruise. Hated Jungle Cruise. I knew this going into me watching Jungle Cruise. I came out of Jungle Cruise and I was just like, I mean, whatever, dude. It's a Disney movie for 8-year-olds, right? So, and I'm just kind of like, you know. I walk out of this film, and it's an adult film. And it's not for the weak-minded either. So, again, in hearing my tone and everything, this is not a bad film. It's an extremely good film. I just think, and you know, it could have been David's intention, but I think it's overloaded with so many options that it's tough for someone like me to focus on all the good things. You know, I keep circling the whole, from a technical aspect, every single portion of this film works. The cinematography by Andrew Draws Palermo. The music by Daniel Hart. There's the production design by Jade Healy, who I've actually been a fan of for quite some time. She's on The House of the Devil, Sacrament. Marriage Story, the most horrific story I've seen in a long time. The killing of a sacred deer. Actually, we had Old Boy from A Killing of a Sacred Deer in there.
Very good. I have to say, so you're talking about all of these technical things, and I think that's what makes this so purely art, is that the production design is immaculate. Cinematography is, every shot is gorgeous. Every decision for movement is impeccable. The music is focused and has choirs at times, and it feels like a melancholy in its adventurousness. I loved everything about it all seeming to come together. And Barry Keoghan, I love when he shows up in movies. I think he's a phenomenal actor. The one shot, like I was reading an interview with David Lowery, said it was like hell to shoot this movie. And when the camera comes out of the woods following Dev Patel on horseback, talking with Barry Keoghan in a mud-ridden battlefield, I was like, oh yeah, this is miserable. This would be a miserable shot to get, but look at it. It is so phenomenal.
Honestly, that looks great. One of my favorite shots of the entire film is actually when he is leaving the village for the first time. That one tracking shot around the one road. You have one castle in the background, and then another looks like a burnt down castle appears, and it's extremely methodical. Is to use your word is. As I don't know why I said it like you made up the word methodical, but anyway, methodical, like to track the way they did. I went, all right, we're in for a good one. And then melancholy is a great way to put it. Maybe that's why I walked out and I was just like, what I told Kyle before I walked in the film, I was like, hey man, let's maybe do 2 or 3 films today. We'll keep it at 20 minutes a pop, boom, bang, get it on the fucking, get it on wax and call it a day. And as I was walking out, I went, well, that's not happening, because there's no way that I think, particularly you and I, we're going to be able to do only 20 minutes on this. It wasn't going to happen. And going back to, how hell the battlefield sequence must have been, how much fun, at least if you're a cinematographer, how much fun it must have been to play around in the Green Chapel, as it were, because the shots within the forest, oh my gosh.
They're gorgeous. They're gorgeous. Him standing at the entrance, where he just stands there for seems like eons, but it's so gorgeous. It's beautiful, and he moves in, and I love how the movie. Usually when the adventurer, the hero, comes to the place that their journey is supposed to end, things start happening. But I love that he has to wait, and he has to sit there. He has to think more and more about the possibility of his own demise, his own death, that he has ridden this entire way to face down. And it's just, there's something, the movie has that melancholic, languid feel to it. And yet I didn't walk away sad. I didn't walk away, despaired. I actually walked away with hope, because, he says, now he basically wins and is accepting death. I like that. He says, and now it's off with your head. But what that is now it's for your own decision, your own way of life. You can live the life that was shown to you, maybe that you're destined for, but maybe you could live it differently. And I found that to be really beautiful. This is a beautiful movie in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I will say, and I did, a couple of people that I was talking to before we got on the mic, I did say that, because one of my friends in particular, he's basically verbatim what you're saying, and I was like, look, man, it's a beautiful movie. I won't say wonderful. It's a beautiful movie. It's just, you want to know what it is? Here's what it is. Everybody loves the Game of Thrones, and I didn't mind the Game of Thrones. I would say like 60% of it is a really well done show. I think when it comes down to it, it's not for me. Like, it's not that I don't dislike it's not that I dislike it. That's not what it is. It's just when it comes to fantasy. In fact, this is going to make me sound stupid, and I don't give a fuck because I watch both. So poo poo on you. I think I just prefer a mob boss that has some tough decisions to make as opposed to a fantasy. And I know it does dumb it down a little bit, but at the same, I think that we have talked at length on your show, my show before. My favorite movies are Coen Brothers shit, like this very real shit. And almost rooted in stupidity, more often than not, you know? Just
I agree. The irony of life.
Yeah, and I think for whatever reason, I tend to gravitate to that more so than a fantasy story. And it's not to, you know, I'm not throwing shade by any means to the fantasy genre. It's just, it's for some people and it's not for others. And I don't know if you're a huge fantasy person, but the kid that I'm referring to that I was talking to, hey Jacob, hey, how are you, buddy? I mean, Dungeons and Dragons, the whole nine, like he's into that world, and I wonder, I don't hear that from you. Yours is much more, and calm down, Jacob, I'm not about to rip on you. Kyle's is more from a cinematic point of view, whereas I feel Jacob was more in the fantasy writing point of view, if that makes any sense. And I think just a lot of it for me, it's just like, yeah, man, Knights of the Round Table. You want to know what when I hear Knights of the Round Table, I think of a bunch of gentlemen singing in an old British comedy. You know, like in
a model.
Yes,
you know?
Yeah. Dude, I almost you were making such a good point earlier. I almost shoehorned it in because you were like, and we're talking about Camelot, and I almost went, Camelot, it's only a model. But you were making too good of a point, and I dare not step on your toes like that. So.
Well, I actually want to address what you're talking about, because I think I understand why there can be a divide in connecting with fantasy writing in particular. I mean, just look at where this comes from. This stems from chivalry romance. Like, you know, this is arguably antiquated in a lot of ways. That sort of romantic notions of honor, romantic notions of what it means to be a knight. I mean, these are things that are beyond us today, even with the knightings and knightlihoods of the modern day Britain. Like it's you know, you have Sir Elton John. Like, you know, he's not taking up the task to go. Elton John is not taking up the musical task to go have a showdown with the Green Knight on piano. Like, you know, this is a different notion. It's almost an aspect of celebrity, which that plays into in the narrative here. You know, you see all these poor townsfolk and their mythology and their storytelling, and Darwin is at the center of it. You know, it's the most exciting thing that's happened to them in eons. Like, you know, they focus on it. But it's what I like is that it has an existential product to him, because there's this expectation to what he needs to follow through, this expectation on his honor. And so I can see the division here. There's a lot of antiquated notions and a lot of fantasy because it is, you know, harkens back to a different time. But I like what David Lowery is doing, is that he is utilizing the romanticism, the chivalry aspects of the ideas of the past, puts them into a very well thought out narrative. And then in the feeling of that narrative is questioning those elements at their very core as he makes his journey, and whether or not he has to accept these things or not. And I think that there's a battle there. There's an existential battle there through those romantic notions that define our fantasy.
Yeah, that's why he comes on the show. That's why, because now that I've talked to you about it a little bit more at length, I just can't. Like, you could explain to me in text message all day. It just doesn't resonate to me. This is the real shit right here. This is the good stuff. I can hear you. I can feel you. I can touch your inner thigh. That's not true. He's 2,500 miles away. But
we all wish.
But because now it's not that I'm coming around. I'm still confused. I think I'm always going to be confused. Like, in terms of like, well, where do you, Sean, where do you want to take it? Like, where in your head is a good way to look at the film? But like it's. What about the post-credit scene? Is that Garwin's daughter putting on the crown? Does that hold any significance? What's happening?
That was something that was a little bit of an oddity to myself, but I do think it is his daughter, which would be accurate to the lineage of if Garwin became king, that his daughter would then. Would then don the crown. I don't know if that is. You could interpret this in a couple ways. You could interpret it as it's worth going through a life that he has seen and that is unfulfilling in a lot of ways. If the future is brighter and the future is more progressive, for the idea that his daughter will take on the crown, that it will be more significant, maybe that is a positive in the notion of living a life that perhaps his life was hard. He had loss. He had, but it might not even be his daughter. Like you could interpret that it is just somebody else.
Right.
It could be someone with no royal lineage having the crown, which is also in a sense making a commentary on the futility of the notions of like lordship, knights, and king, which has passed us and has passed beyond. And I'm not sure what it definitely represents, but it definitely has significance if you want to think about it.
Okay. In winding down here, because of course, 30 without blinking. Let's chat about some of the performances, likes, dislikes. I got to be honest with you. I mean, Alicia Vikander just continues to, I think, knock it out of the park. Dev Patel, Dev Patel kind of feels not near as bad. Who are we talking about that never gets their just dessert? Fucking Edgar Ramirez. He's not in the same camp as Edgar Ramirez, but I do feel like we are teetering on misusing Dev Patel. Not in this particular instance, of course.
Well, it certainly worried me that once after Slumdog Millionaire, we saw him in what preceded was Last Airbender and The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, two of them. And I was like, oh man, that's rough. Like this guy's worthy of something else. And I have to say, I think we're going to be in we had the McConaissance or, the McConaughey Renaissance that came out. I think we're going to have a Patel Renaissance. I think he is finding his stride and the roles that really suit him. He's been emerging in sort of more independent cinema and a little bit of foreign cinema, and I really am excited to what this will allow him to do.
You want to know what the other idea I had for a working title was, but I didn't know if it would be too movie insider for people to get, so I just went vulgar with it. The Fantastic Mr. Fox and the Lion search. Would you have got that joke if I'd have said that?
Yeah, I would have got it. Okay. Yeah, Lion, man. Again, Lion was like a good movie, but it didn't utilize anybody to their fullest potential. But I think Dev Patel has a lot of promise. I think he's great. I think he's great in this film. I think he shows the range of emotions, the vulnerability, the hesitation, the regret, the melancholy, all of it. He balances so emotionally well. I actually don't think that there's a weak performance in this movie. I think, again, this is one of those kind of films that requires everyone to operate on a certain level or a certain tone, because they're all ingrained in the mood of this art piece. And I thought Sean Harris as King Arthur, Kim Dickey as his wife, Ralph Ineson as the Green Knight, Barry Keoghan as the robber on the trail. Everybody's operating with kind of this essence to what the film requires. And nobody's out of place. Everybody's within the fabric of it. I think it's fantastic.
My two standouts are going to be Sean Harris. I just thought the tenderness in which he plays his character was just, it was something to behold, especially since it's kind of not a complete left turn from the lore or the legend, but it's just treated very... they almost seem like, what did I read that I happen to agree with? They seem like sickly children, both the king and the queen, and it's played perfectly if that's the way that you're going to look at it. And I wish I could say, I've been a fan of Sean Harris, goes back decades, sir, decades. Not. I thought he was a standout in Mission Impossible. I went, oh, who's this guy? He's a pretty goddamn good villain.
He has not had a long career. He actually, I think, was in prison. Like, he had a prison stuff. He's almost like a British Danny Trejo in a lot of ways. He had like a really bad beginning of his life, and he turned it around, became an actor, and he's a prominent, really great feature of that Red Riding trilogy that came out about 10
years
ago.
Yep.
He's in Mission Impossible, he's a great villain in Rogue Nation and Fallout. And he was in that Michael Caine Death Wish movie, Harry Brown.
Yes, yep.
Every time he shows up, you're right. What's so different about this role is that there is tenderness, there's heartfelt, like there's a Shakespearean aspect to his character, which he also did that Justin Kurzel Macbeth, which I'm not a big fan of, unfortunately. I love Macbeth. I just did not think they handled it very well. But he's also in that, and he brings that kind of Shakespearean essence here to the role, and there's a gravity to him, and the gravity is through kindness, is through his heartfelt nature. And that's different than what we've seen from Sean Harris, and I really like that. I do agree.
The other standout star, and who I think is going to launch into the stratosphere, or we the people should band together and launch her ourselves into the stratosphere, Erin Kellyman, man. Erin Kellyman was great as Winifred, and she's got virtually no screen time. And I was just like, to me, she was the standout star in Falcon and Winter Soldier, boo. But she was the standout star in that show. I was like, you know what? She's got the goods. That's I was in the theater by myself, talking to myself, of course, the entire time. But I was just like, you know what? She's got the goods, and she's in it for what? Maybe 3 minutes as Winifred?
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty haunting sequence. Very beautiful. The imagery of it is impactful. I think it's an important sequence to kind of relate to the idea. It's interesting because we tend to like forget what is going on in these scenes into the totality of the journey. But think of all the things he says to her, where she's like, "My head is in the water. Can you go get it?" And he goes, well, "If I get it, what do I get in return?" And she's like, "Why would you ask me that?" And it's kind of funny, but it really gets to the point of like, wait, aren't you a knight? Aren't you honorable? Is it always a quid pro quo in your situation? And that it has to be him growing out of these notions of trade and to that good is enough. Like, Alicia Vikander's character said from the beginning, isn't goodness good enough? Like, why is greatness something? And it's all these like little moments that define him to accept and understand that. And perhaps he does not necessarily live out the life he is destined to see within that moment, because that was the life he would live if he was going to retreat in his selfishness, was going to retreat in his preservation, and it would result in a life of loss. But if he accepts that, if he changes, he does things for other people for goodness, then things will be better for him. Life will be better for him. He'll have a better trajectory. That's the possibility. And I think back on what it means for him to come across the giants. Like, a friend of mine was like, "What does that even mean? Is it just like kind of a eerie visual sequence?" And I'm like, I think it means like he asks them to carry him, and then once they try or like go near him, he has this reaction.
Yeah, yep.
And it's part of him not being able to control where he would go in their hands, but it's also perhaps he's not supposed to because it would make his journey easier.
That's fucking interesting. That's fucking interesting, man. I like that. Yeah, in fact, I prefer to look at it, or possibly, we don't know, possibly look at it that way. That's, yeah. What if he didn't want he realized he didn't want the help right away? That's interesting.
Well, yeah, it's all a matter of control. Like, he has to have control of his existence, and it's about letting go at the end. So it all kind of intertwines and weaves, and it's all part of the same picture, part of the same journey, even though there are different chapters of this journey. But you were talking about her performance, and I do think she worked very well. I mean, I thought she was fine in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but then again, I think that series was just kind of fine.
Well, that's why I was like, a boo.
Yeah. But she was also in Solo, Star Wars Story.
Yep.
It's like, she's good, and what I like about this movie is that I am convinced that she has more in her than what the Disney variety is giving her.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, I get feelings about people, and when I see her, I'm just like, she's going to be around for a while. I don't know what it is. We haven't even scratched the surface of her potential, I don't think, but I think Erin is going to be around a long time, and or maybe I'm just stupid, and it's something as stupid as I think she's hot. I don't know. It could be that, but I'd like to.
You like the redhead? You like the redheads, John?
Yeah. I think I do. I have a question for you.
Sure.
Why can I not get on board with the talented Joel Edgerton?
I don't know. What is your problem?
I don't know what my problem is.
I love Joel Edgerton.
Yeah, I don't know. And here's the thing: I don't hate him. I don't get annoyed when I see him on the screen. I just go, I don't have this big long spiel. It's just, and he's been in a lot of stuff that I really, really like. Like, I think one of the most underrated films in the past decade is Midnight Special. And, when he pops up, I'm just like I know whatever he does, he'll do strong. It's not like when a John Bernthal pops up and I go, oh, fuck you. But with him, I don't know. He's even wrote and directed shit that I didn't mind. I really thought, what was
The Gift is pretty good.
Dude, The Gift is pretty sweet. And I'm just like, why do I have a problem with Joel? I don't get it. Especially since, he's not just an actor, so I should be even more on board with him. And yet somehow my boat continues to run parallel with him. I'm still thinking about it.
I don't know. That's interesting because I swooned with Joel Edgerton when I first saw him in Animal Kingdom.
Great film. Not the TNT series, you fucking mopes.
No. Yeah, that's what it's based off of. It's based off the movie with Jackie Weaver, and it's a great movie. I don't know, he swayed me then, and I was always intrigued as to what he would do, and I think he has great ability. I think he kind of transforms and disappears into some variety of performances, and I like him in this movie. He's got this kind of wild exuberance to him, and what I believe he is part of that's what's really detailed in the poem, is the Lord of the House, and that he gets what he receives from that Darwin receives in his home, that are kittens throughout the day through the advances of his wife that he tries to avoid. But that comes to fruition in the movie, where he brings him things and he wants the exchange, and there's something to that. There's something to that kind of representation, that what that means to be taking from someone's home and returning it in debt. I don't know. There's something about that sequence that's bizarre in the best kind of way, and I think Joel makes it work.
Yeah, maybe it was because he was in Bright. Maybe that's what it was. I don't.
I can understand. Well, he's unrecognizable and bright, but still.
What's funny is I've never even seen Bright. I went Will Smith and Joel. We'll see what else. Let's watch something else.
One of those high concept films that goes terribly.
Which is so stupid because like I'm sending you pictures of Action USA that I was watching the other night, and it's just like I don't get it. I don't know why my brain does what it does, but like I said, it's not that I dislike Joel. It's I don't know. Like I just feel like I'm kind of, before I jump aboard his ship, like I just keep on waiting and waiting, and there's no rhyme or reason for it. It's just how I feel about him. I mean, even did he write It Comes at Night, or was he just in that?
Oh no, that was who wrote that? The guy who did Kesha and Wave.
That's right. Yep, you're right.
Yeah. Which that guy. I mean, I like Kesha a lot, but It Comes at Night was good, but not as good as it could have been. And then Wave, I did not care.
Yeah, Waves was a little, it was what I think I walked out of that one thinking kind of a lot that I do about Oscar season. You and I hopefully we get a chance to talk about Pig, but similar thing that I told you about Pig is that, like, all right, I didn't mind the movie, but I feel like if an actor or a writer or a director is getting all this buzz about them, and then I go in and I actually see the film, and in Pig's case, it was everybody was all over Nicolas Cage's performance. It is great. It's one of his best, and I was like, well, it was okay. Like I wasn't like wowed by his performance. I mean, he felt, for the first time in a while, he felt like an actor, like as opposed to fucking goddamn jujitsu and a couple of the other things that I've seen where I'm just like, Jesus Christ, he's just Nick Cage being Nick Cage. Well, that's the point. No, it's not. You're an actor. Act like it. So, maybe too much.
No, I'm not as swayed by Pig as a lot of other people are. I did like it, and we've had our conversations about it. Yeah. I think performance-wise, I mean, just because he turned off the crazy does not necessarily mean that it's as poignant as people are convinced that it is.
Yeah, so that's how I felt about Waves. We come around full circle.
Waves was just an onslaught of depressing trauma that had no point to it. It was mainly like trauma porn, like, to me. Like, honestly, Trey Edward Schultz, that was the filmmaker. I'm not the biggest fan of his ability and his work. He came out of the same Florida school as like Barry Jenkins and Sean Baker, and I prefer the other two way more.
What is more depressing, or you can say nothing alike, Waves or Requiem?
I mean,
you could say, you're just like, hey, those are two completely different fucking movies. I would sell for that, but I think I walked out feeling kind of the same.
I think, though, the process that Schultz had in how he tackled the trauma and the emotional porn of Waves is actually influenced by how Aronofsky kind of did Requiem for a Dream. Just an onslaught, just relentless, unforgiving, unbreaking. You cannot shy your eyes away from the terribleness, and I think there's a connection there, definitely. When you approach subject matter, it's just different. It's just a different subject matter at the heart of it, but it's the approach that's the same.
Yeah, everybody, I always tell people the same thing. They're just like, oh, I can't get over the arm sequence in Requiem. I'm like, that's what fucking got to you? The whole fucking thing sucks. It's just like if anything, the arm to me is relatively less impactful than the downward spiral of who played the old lady again? Why am I blacking out on her name as she goes slowly crazy in her apartment? Fuck, what is her name?
She's from The Exorcist. Alan Burstyn.
There we go. Yep, you got it. And I was just like, no, man, like the whole thing, fuck the arm. That whole movie sucks. That whole movie sucks to watch. Anyway, we're obviously, if we're talking about Requiem for a Dream, I am doing what I tend to do, which is derail. You are derailing. Kyle, thank you so much for coming on. This was, I'm not persuaded. I don't feel as confused. No, because I wasn't fucking confused. I was just like, well, how do you want me to take it? That's kind of where I was at. Like I understood the motivations. I understood the subtext. I guess I was just like, okay, which one do you want me to choose? And I think at least on some level, you made me appreciate the questions as opposed to be annoyed by the questions. So for that, I thank you, sir. So where can they find you? What's coming down the pipe for Kyle, which is always goddamn something?
Well, we're right in the beginning of the new season 4, called The Horror, that I dropped from Netflix now just because I like the reference. But we are getting into the beginning, and it's more, well, we kind of changed it up. We're going to kind of sprinkle in a kind of release pattern where we jump in years, but I'm almost kind of going in sequential order to the decades that these movies come out. So I'm moving from the 20s into the 50s into the 50s. I mean, so this week we're going to be entering the 60s, and then next week it's more of the 60s for 2 weeks. And then once we get to the 70s, it starts sort of breaking off and doing some other transition. But it's a full-fledged horror, study. If you like horror films, I think if you follow the whole series, you'll find 50 films, many of which maybe you have seen, maybe you haven't heard of, maybe you have, and maybe you have not seen ever. I think it offers a wide variety of options. I think the conversations have been amazing. I look back, I just had a conversation last night about Black Christmas, but that's that kind of bridges the horror genre. But we're also doing the Christmas season for the Patreon. And that will come out in October until December 25th. The horror season goes to the mid-November, and then after November, we're going to be starting up season 5, which is Dystopia. So we're moving ahead. I'm a little behind, even though I have a lot of great room. I'm behind for what I could have been doing rather than what I need to be doing, if that makes sense.
The Green Knight's a Christmas film, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is.
Okay. I told you on your show, all you got to do is, if you just say Christmas once in the film, it's a Christmas film to me.
I like the use of Christmas as either a backdrop for significance. Like 2 of the movies we're doing are Catch Me If You Can and Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. And both of them don't take place on Christmas per se, but a lot of the significant events in the movie takes place on Christmas. And it's a repetition. So that's why I've chosen some of the, we're also doing the Wong Kar-wai film 2046, which it's time travel essentially, but it always lands on Christmas Eve is the event of the movie. So that's why I find it interesting for the category.
I'll be appearing on Kyle's show in a couple of days here. We will be doing I Saw the Devil, and I rewatched that yesterday or the day before. God damn, is that a good fucking movie, dude. It is relentless, and it says motherfuck your feelings, and it flips just about everything on its head.
Yeah, I mean, we'll be recording that this weekend, but that won't come out till November. That will be a great week. That will be a three-hitter on serial killers. It'll be I Saw the Devil, Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, and Silence of the Lambs all in the same week. That'll be a great little trifecta conversation.
I'm going to make a bold statement here, right here on my show. I don't know if I believe it. I think I might like I Saw the Devil more than Silence of the Lambs. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. One thing I was reminded of, though, when I was watching that, Koreans been making better films for us, better films than us for a decade. That's what I intend on spouting off on your show, is that I think we forget just how long they have been succeeding in making good films.
Yeah. I mean, they have adopted a very good blend of Asian dynamics and culture and utilizing the Hollywood mode in a very creative, and I think is outshining us in a lot of ways.
Yes. Sir, thank you very much. I'm going to get you out of here. I knew that we weren't going to be able to do 3, but I still kind of want to do Jungle Cruise with you because I think it would be kind of fun.
Just break down why the movie doesn't work.
Right. And your response last night, dude, I must have been giggling for a good 2.5, 3 minutes. I was just like, hey, he's not wrong. He's really not wrong. He's a Spaniard. He's from Brazil, and now he's American. What's happening? So
the movie doesn't make sense, and it's irritating that it doesn't make sense. Like I would be okay with it if it like recognized that it didn't make sense and had fun, and was honest about it. But they just like power through like you're supposed to not notice, and I'm like, well, I know it, and that's dumb.
All right. Ella Cinema, I Know Movies and You Don't, feature with Kyle Bruehl. Listen to his show, don't listen to mine. Or you can listen to mine if he's on it. That's fine. Ella Cinema Podcast, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I Know Movies and You Don't, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Shouldn't be that hard to find. Reach out. Drop him a like. Drop him a follow. Go on now. I wouldn't have him on as much if I didn't, like, you got to understand, I only have cool people on. Shit. Ella Cinema, we gone.